That's no use, is it? Hey guys, Rod here. Welcome back to the channel. I have a bit of a deadline. In 2 weeks' time, the DNO are coming to move my electricity cutout that is currently above a door inside this little room here. I call the coal room because when we moved in it was full of coal. They're going to move that from here onto the outside wall of the house. I want to put external wall insulation up anywhere in this house that isn't going to have an extension. The plan this year is to build an extension all across the back of the house and a single story extension at the front of the house. But with the DNO coming to move the cutout and the meter getting moved into an external box that's going on the side of the wall there, I need to get the insulation up on there pronto, because if it's not done now, it'll never get done, and then there'll forever be a cold spot in the wall where that meter box is. Last week, I took my SDS drill and knocked all of the existing render off the wall. Why did I do that? I've gone for 50mm Kingspan insulation. That insulation should be just enough to leave a bit of a lip for the existing windowsill. When I had that window installed, I knew at some point I was going to be putting external wall insulation up. So I have purposefully had them put in a larger sill, but it's not huge. I think it was 150mm sill. So there's just enough space behind it to get 50mm insulation on the wall and some render. So let's get started. So at this point I've broken off all the old render. Now, I was planning to leave this step in place, but now that I've got the leveling mortar on the wall, it's all scratched up, it's dry. Next step is to get the boards up, so I'm going to start by installing rails. Now that I've got the trays in there and the little attachments that allow you to render up to the tray, stop it from cracking, overlap the mesh that you attach onto the tray where there's a joint in the tray. Next up, I'm going to measure up some of these boards and start getting them cut, so that once I've mixed up the adhesive, I can make some decent progress and get these boards on. Had a bit of a disaster, so I'm not even halfway done making the holes for the mechanical fixings for the boards. It's now like 4 o'clock on Saturday afternoon, and it's knackered. Probably supposed to use it like super slow. Wasn't going particularly hard on it. Not sure what I'm going to do now. I've got my non-waterproof insulation up on the wall and I can't put all the fixings into it. Screwed. Doesn't seem like anyone local stocks those cutters, so new plan, I think. I'm going to get this bit here mechanically fixed and the bits that are going around the corner. Get the base layer on here, just this corner. Get the render on tomorrow probably. And finishing it off is going to be a job for next week after I get another cutter. Anyway, going to crack on and try and get this done before it gets dark. to attach the boards mechanically, I've gone with metal pins. They have a bit of a plastic cap on the end, and you put polystyrene over, so there is slightly more chance that you get some cold bridging with the pin, but you got to remember it's mostly encased in plastic. It's got cold plastic cap on the end, and it's got polystyrene. The reason I went with these rather than the plastic pins, a lot of the reviews and stuff were just saying they're an absolute nightmare. They just snap all the time. So metal it is. So following my disaster last weekend with the little drill bits that cut out the holes for the fixings, I cracked on and managed to get this corner finished. And sneak peek ahead to a future video, the electricity box is now in. So it's rendered. It's not the best job in the world. I ended up cutting a few corners in order to get it done on time. Today I'm going to crack on and get the rest of the fixings in and possibly get the base coat on. In an ideal world. Never seems to work out that way. So I've drilled out all the holes and I'm going to have another go at creating the openings for the fixings to go into. Bought myself 2 of these this time, didn't want to risk another disaster. I'm not entirely sure if I screwed up by using them too quickly, too fast maybe. So I've set my drill onto slow speed and we'll see if these things disintegrate like they did last time. So it looks like I was just using it far too quickly, which in hindsight seems obvious. I've drilled quite a lot of holes and we're still in good shape. The paper layer that comes on top of this king span is a bit of a pain. Got to clear it out every hole or two, otherwise it gets a bit gummed up. There's a little bit of resistance just getting through that paper, but otherwise just goes super slow, and I don't think you'll have the same stupid problem I had. It's another day and I didn't get the base coat on yesterday, obviously, but all the fixings are in. I have cut up almost all of the mesh that has to go into the base coat. I just got to do this little corner here, so I'll get 2 bits for that just now. I think I'm going to take that gutter off as well, just to make it easier to get in there. Let's crack on and get this base coat on today. Get this watertight, because this Kingspan insulation has a sort of paper layer on it and it doesn't adhere particularly well to the insulation and it doesn't like getting wet. Ideally you want to get the base coat on as quickly as possible, so let's get that done, and then at least it's watertight and it's already Sunday, so chances are it'll be next weekend now before I get the render on. So apparently there are two ways you can do this. You can put on a thicker coat and embed the mesh in the middle of that thicker coat and then smooth it all off. Or you can put on a thinner coat, embed the mesh just inside that thinner coat, sort of 3 to 4 millimeters, and then put another coat on top. I had originally thought, oh, I'm going to put on a thicker coat and just embed the mesh because that'll be less work. But as it turned out, I think I probably put on a thin coat because the mesh ended up sitting on the surface. But you can see here that the mesh is still quite clearly visible. So it needs another 2 or 3 millimeters, maybe 4, on top of it. I'm going to crack on and get another coat on this, and hopefully it'll have an hour to set a bit before it gets dark, and I can go over it and make sure it's kind of smooth and sensible and ready to accept render. Winter's such a pain in the arse. It's only 4:30 and it's already pretty much too dark. So I've repurposed one of the lights I bought for filming videos as a work light. Got the second coat on the wall now. It's looking okay. Needs a fair bit of work still. Need to get out here and continue flattening this down and float it off once it's gone off a little bit. So I'm going to crack on and get that done. This is where we're at. I've got the base coat on. That was the weekend, it's now Thursday, so the timing didn't really work out very well. When I came out at night, it still wasn't dry enough to float it up nicely. So in places it's all right, and in other places it's not ideal. But I reckon once the silicon renders on it, it's going to look just fine. This is also at a side of my house where nobody's ever really going to see it, so it's one of the reasons I started here. Gives me an opportunity to experiment and make mistakes in a spot where no one but me is ever really going to see it or care. So I'm going to nip out to the garage and get the primer and get a coat of that on today so that tomorrow I can get the silicon render on. According to the instructions, it's almost impossible to put on. You have to protect it from sun, rain, wind, bloody windy today. They suggest you put up protective scaffolding or cover. It's not going to happen, is it? So the stuff I'm using is EWI 333 Top Coat Primer. So it's the next day. The primer has had time to dry. It's been almost 24 hours. So I'm going to slap some of the render up on the wall and can finally call this job done. I'm going to use this silicon render. It's EWI 075 from the EWI Store. So it's a 1.5 millimeter render, which means it's got like the stone in it is 1.5 millimeter in size. Put it on really thin, scrape it back, and then float it up with a plastic float. So give that a go. that's me done. The wall is rendered, it's all finished. Doesn't look too bad at all. It's not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but for a first attempt at a DIY job, it is pretty good. I am happy with it. This is probably not the simplest DIY thing to do in the world, but as you've seen in this video, step by step, each bit, not that hard, quite easy to do, just takes a bit of time. Top tip, don't do it in winter, total nightmare. Everything takes time to dry, and then you have to finish things off, the shorter days, the crappy weather. It's just a bad idea. It's kind of ironic, installing external wall insulation, do it in summer, makes more sense. Longer days, nicer weather. Hope you've enjoyed this video. If you want to see more from me, check out this video. Always appreciate it if you take the time to subscribe to the channel. Most of the people who watch aren't subscribed, and subscribing really helps me out, helps grow the channel. If you've got any questions, bang them in the comments down below. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.